Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshak if you want to call me by my in-game name. And during our stream today, a few of the new Ungoro cards were announced. Some of these being quite a few powerful legendaries that I figured I would want to cover. There's also a lot of questions in the stream regarding these cards. So I figured, due to the fact that you guys are asking for it, normally I like waiting till there's at least 10 to 15 cards, but I figured due to the power level of these cards that released, and also the fact that a lot of these cards are kind of a new flavor. There's some elementals in here we haven't seen anything like them before, so I figured, if you ask for it, I gotta provide. So with that said, let's head into the first card that we're going to be reviewing, and that is the Clutch Mother Zabbis. She's a 2-drop 2/2 beast warlock card. I don't know where the fuck beast comes in, but whatever, she's a beast. Whenever you discard this card, give it +2/+2 and return it to your hand. So obviously the whole discard synergy with Warlock we have going on here, obviously it's powerful. It's the new Warlock Legendary. We've already seen the Warlock Legendary quest, so now we have all of the Warlock Legendaries basically taken care of. I would have to say they're pushing the discard Warlock just as hard as they're pushing, or had pushed the Beast Druid. That didn't work out, but currently the discard Warlock, or the Zoo discard Warlock, is really not that bad. And with a lot of these synergy cards that we're seeing with the quest and the Legendary quest and cards like this, and even the Fellhound that we had covered in the previous review, I mean, I can definitely see this deck being somewhere in the meta. I mean, it's hard to say what tier it's going to be in without playing with the cards and, testing them. But obviously, Discard Warlock is going to be somewhere in the, one of the, I wouldn't say most popular, but it's going to be, a deck that we're going to have to take close attention to, or pay close attention to, and definitely try a bit out on our own. Unfortunately, though, this is, I don't want to scale it at the same way I scale like Reno or Kazakis, but this is a card that if you draw it in the early game and it gets discarded through a couple times, it's going to be exceedingly powerful, right? Because when you discard, the problem with discard is that your fact that you're discarding your hand and you can't refill your hand with other cards unless you use your Warlock Hero power, you're taking 2 damage, you're using 2 mana. And there's some setbacks there, right? But with cards like this, if you end up getting lucky to draw it early on in the game, which is like card draw RNG, and then you end up discarding it, which is just normal, random RNG, what card you discard, it's all random. And you discard this a couple times, and then all of a sudden you're in a perfect position. But let's say you're playing discard Warlock, and you don't draw this very early on, and you've used all of your discard synergy, the card is bad. If you have this card in your hand, and you have bad RNG, and it doesn't seem to be discarding this card, it's discarding everything but this card, or only this card gets discarded only once or twice, it just feels bad too. So this is one of those cards that, RNG heavily impacts it, and also when you draw this card, it's gonna reflect how powerful this is in a particular game. So I would have to rate it the same way I would rate, like a Kazakis or a Reno or whatever card that if you draw early in the game are like drawing patches in your open hand. If it happens, your win rate goes fucking through the roof, right? But if you don't draw it, then your win rate decreases by 10 to 20% just because you didn't draw up one particular card in your deck. Like, it just doesn't, it's a cool mechanic, but I just don't like it that much, because why couldn't they make it so you could run 2 of them and then make it less powerful or something? I don't know, something like that. It makes sense to me. But anyway, moving to the next card, Sunkeeper Tarim, 6-drop 3/7 taunt battlecry, set all minions attacks and health to 3. So it's basically a keeper of Uldaman, but for the entire board. So I definitely see this. A lot of people, the first reactions, right? Like, oh, if your opponent has a giant field of Jades, they're 7/7, 8/8s, 9/9s, you play this card, they're all 3/3s, right? But, a 5 or 6 3/3s is still 15 damage, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, if there's 5 of them, it's 15 damage. But, I would have to say, your opponent has 2 fairly large minions, you can buff them back down, but it doesn't take away the effect. But I guess if you, let's say they play Rag or something, and you'd play this, you still have 4 mana to do other things with, or you have other creatures to trade in, because if everybody's a 3/3, then you're going to be able to trade whatever you want into whatever they have. So I can definitely see this card being fit into a mid-range Paladin deck, which was my initial question on our Instagram and Twitter, is where do you guys see this card? Mid-range Paladin isn't a thing. This could, it also would fit fairly well in Control Paladin, I believe. But this is a card where you're gonna want to have some minions on the board when you play it, right? Whether you have a bunch of tokens out or you have like 2 1s, 1 2s, 2 2s, whatever the case may be. You're wanting to buff your board. You don't always want to be you don't want to always have to use this guy very defensively, even though kind of built into this guy is taunt. And it's interesting that they gave him 7 HP because if you notice, it's gonna set everything to 3. So they made it so they have to trade at least 3 creatures in him to kill him unless they want a hero power or they happen to be like a druid or a mage or a rogue that can deal 1 damage. But he's a 3/7, so he's going to be able to take they have 3 3/3s. It's going to absorb all of those attacks if they're playing use this against like a warrior or a priest that they can't really deal that 1 extra damage very easily. So I actually like that about this card is the 3/7. It's very very small that they made this a 7, but I think it's they did that on a purpose. Well, obviously they did it on purpose. Cool card. I like it a lot. Paladin Legendary. No, I wouldn't say it's as good as or scaled to as high as cards like Tyrion or Rag the Light Lord, but it definitely is much better than Edric the Pure. Definitely. I like it. Next card, Flame Geyser. 2-drop, deal 2 damage, add an elemental to your hand. So, I'm showing you cards like this now because there's a card at the very end which involves, there's a couple cards towards the end that are neutral, epics, and legendary that involve this new elemental cards and the new elemental tag, which we'll get to. So just keep this whole elemental thing kind of brewing in your head like, ooh, what does a 1/2 elemental mean? So the closest thing I can think to a card that deals 2 damage for 2 mana and summons a creature is Jade Shuriken. Is Jade Shuriken used in Jade Rogue? Is Jade Rogue good? No. Simple as that. And this is a 1/2 elemental. This isn't even like a scaled Jade Golem, right? So like Jade Golem scale. So you could Jade Shuriken and maybe you summon a 3/3, a 4/4, a 5/5. It depends where you are in your Jade Golem cycles, right? But this Flame Geyser is always just going to generate a 1/2 elemental. But the elemental is used for other things. But the problem is those other things you either may not have or you may not have this card prior to the other things, which we'll get to in a little bit. So just, again, keep this in mind. But I feel as if this is just a weaker mechanic than Jade Golem. Because Jade Golem, you get it 100%. You play a Jade card, it summons a new Jade dude, and whatever your Jade dude's at gets +1/+1 100% of the time. There's no questions, there's no combos, you don't need shit. You play it, you get it. End of story. Cards like this, which we'll get to, there's some combos that need to get involved, and then you need to draw things at particular times, and if you don't, it's bad. So that's why I think Jade Golem's going to shine a little bit brighter than maybe some of these new cards due to the fact that there is no requirements. I find some of the best cards in the game, they're just good on their own. They don't need to be comboed, and if comboed, they just get stronger from what they're at rather than just be subpar if not comboed, if you kind of catch my drift. Next card, Shadow Visions, 2 mana. Discover a copy of a spell in your deck. 2 mana priest card. Discover a copy of a spell in your deck for 2 mana. So you're basically being able to run 2 of the same card if you're running like a Reno deck. But Reno, as we know, is cycling out. So that would be for those in Wild, or maybe there's a new Kazakis, or not a new Kazakis, but like a new card that makes having like only a Kazakis in your deck good, because right now you basically need Reno and Kazakis. Kazakis by itself, that's not enough bang for your buck to run a 1-of deck. So it's basically, do you want to run 3 of any particular priest spell? But I think the more powerful thing is you get to choose the spell that you're going to run the 3rd copy of. So it depends. If you need another Dragonfire potion in this certain situation, what do you need? Do you need a Power Ward Shield? Do you need a Power Ward Shadow Ward Pain? Do you need a Shadow Ward Death? So I like this card. Gives you more variety, lets you pick what you need to succeed. Costs 2 mana, so it's not like Raven Idol status, but you're also copying a card from your deck, and it's not randomly generated through Raven Idol. Like, Raven Idol is just a random, Druid spell or spell, whatever. While this is generating it directly from your deck, and you kind of know it's in your deck, so you could use it in situations that you think could get particular cards from. So, I like it. Stoned Sentinel. So this is what I was talking about, guys. Pay attention. Listen in. 7-drop. Force 4. You're like, Rob, this card sucks. Why are you telling me to listen in? Listen further. If you played an elemental last turn, summon 2 2/3 elementals with taunt. Keep in mind that 2 2/3 elementals is the stats of a 4/6. So you're basically getting an 8/10 for 7 mana, and half of its taunt, well, 2/3 of its taunt, and the other part is this 4/4. So, like I said, you're going to need an elemental to be played last turn, and then you would play this again the following turn, and it has the ability to summon 2/2/3s with 7 mana. But currently, we have a card like Jade Chieftain, and we don't have to summon an elemental last turn. Who cares what happened last turn? We just play Jade Chieftain, and it summons a Jade Golem right now, and that Jade Golem is probably, if you're summoning Jade Chieftain, at least going to be a 5/5 or a 6/6, which is, I would have to say, as good or even better than 2/2/3 elementals. Which 2/2/3 elementals with taunt basically sounds like feral spirits. So it should be battle cried if you played an elemental last turn, summon feral spirits. But they got to make it elementals, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a whole elemental thing. So you got a 2/2/3 elementals. Ooh, feral fucking spirits. Yeah, it's why? Why would I play this over Jade Golems? You got to ask you a question. Haven't played with the cards yet, so this actually could be better than what it looks like. But on paper, Jade Golems, I don't have to play shit last turn. Doesn't matter what I played last turn. How about I play Jade Golem last turn, I get a stronger Jade Golem this turn? How about that? How about that? Meet me outside. I'll catch you with my Jade Golems. Crystalline Oracle. A 1/1 priest card. Death Rattle, copy a card from your opponent's deck and add it to your hand. Wow. If only they didn't... I don't think there's anything that's been like this before in the game. I'm just kidding. So as we know, there's the Shifting Shade, which has this exact same ability. It's a 4/3 for 4 mana, and it's a Death Rattle. Copy a card from your opponent's deck and put it into your hand. This, however, is a 1/1. Some people pointed out a pretty good point, is that the new Priest Quest wants you to play Death Rattles. So they, put in some cool new Death Rattles that, like this, keeps the gas rolling. Takes a card from your opponent's deck, Death Rattle to 1/1 elemental. We're going places. The thing is that this is a 1/1, and if you're looking to complete the quest and summon Death Rattles, you're actually going to play the quest on turn 1, meaning this is your turn 2, which means you're floating 1 mana as a priest, and you're not really playing anything till maybe turn 3 or 4, and that's assuming that you drew them by then, because if the quest is taking up 1 card in your hand, and this taking up 1 card in your hand, and let's say you're going first, you only have 2 other cards in your hand at that particular time. So it's kind of like whether or not you're just going to have the perfect fucking curve of Death Rattles, which is highly unlikely. So this is actually a card that held on turn 1, if you're going for the whole Death Rattle, complete the Priest Quest, may set you back more than it may help you, due to the fact that it couldn't be like a 2 for 2/2 Death Rattle, copy a card for your opponent's deck, and then it's just an Undercity Huckster, right? So how about a 2-drop 2/1? And then it turns into a Loot Hoarder, but steals it from your opponent's deck instead of you drawing a card. I like a 2/1 better than a 1/1. Cost 1 more mana. At least it flows better with the curve of the quest, but maybe they don't want it to be Curve Stone. So they made Curve Stone 1 less mana, so you float 1 mana. So they make it makes it look like this game's not Curve Stone because you float 1, but it's still Curve Stone. I like the card. Don't get me wrong. I like there's Death Rattles, and I take that back. I don't like, it's too random. I like Discover better. But Discover's too much. That's just Dragon Operative at that point if we're going to discover a card from your opponent's deck, right? And we all hate Dragon Operative. It feels so bad when an opponent uses Dragon Operative, and let's say you're playing Shaman, and they take your Hex before you even draw a Hex. That just feels really bad. So I'm not really sure how I feel about this card until we're going to have to play with it. My initial thoughts is it's not as good as people think it is. I think there might be other cards that will be played over it due to the fact that there's a curve inconsistency. But either way, hopefully we see cooler priest cards than this. Firefly. 1-drop, 1/2. Add a 1/2 elemental to your hand. So basically it's a 1 mana 2/4. I mean, that's what it is, right? Because you're Battle Cry, and you get to add an elemental, and the elemental is basically another 1/2, so you're summoning 2 1/2s for 1 mana. Unless the elemental costs 2 mana, but then he probably costs 1 mana. So it's a 2 mana 2/4, but one of them is an elemental. And as we know, a 2 mana 2/4 it's okay. It's good. Yeah. And this counts as an elemental too. So it's just some elemental synergy shit. Cool. Next card. Osrook, Hopefully I said this right. And this is what I was talking about earlier. So we got the whole elemental feel in our head, right? We're feeling elementally. It's a 9-drop 5/5. You're like, Rob, this card absolutely sucks. The stats are not in line with its mana cost. Hold on right there, Buckaroo. We got more. Taunt. Ooh. Okay, continue, Rob. Battle Cry. Gain +5 health for each elemental you played last turn. So essentially, if you're playing cards like Firefly and all that good shit, let's say you summon 2 to 3 elementals on turn 8. That's pretty likely. 3 elementals, 15 HP, plus your 5. So you summon a 520 on turn 9 with Taunt. 520. Well, I can tell you on turn 9, Taunt doesn't really matter. If you're worried about having a Taunt on turn 9, the game didn't go either, one, your direction, or you're not playing the right deck. I guess Taunt is important, but turn 9 Taunt, I wouldn't play, oh, I gotta play this card so I can have a turn 9 Taunt to protect me from Pirate Warriors. Absolutely not. So I don't think this is gonna be the be-all, end-all of the elemental cards. I mean, having a 520 sounds fantastic, but I mean, it takes too much. You have to play all these elementals. You have to make sure you play them on turn 8. Maybe there are better plays on turn 8 besides summoning a 520 that gets Siphon Souled, Blast Crystal, Potion, Hexed, Polymorphed. The list goes on. Even silenced at that point. You play a 9-mana 5/5 and it gets silenced, and it doesn't have Taunt and it doesn't have any more health. So I don't like the card. The card may end up being pretty good. I don't know. But my first initial reaction to this is it's bad. But I wanted to kind of, like I mentioned at the start of the video, I kind of wanted to send you in the direction of a flavor, because we haven't gotten to see any of the elementals yet, right? In the first kind of wave of reviews that we did, there was quite a few cards that were really powerful. We liked them a lot, but there was no elemental theme to it. This set of releases that we got to see here today had a little bit more elemental push to it, and I'm not really liking it. I like, if Jade Golems weren't around, this would be good. Not good, but I would say this would work, right? Like, wow, we get to summon a 520, even if it dies, our deck did some cool shit, elementals, whatever, cool, but Jade Golems, just better. It's just on paper, mathematically better to end the Jade Golems forever. Not that I like Jade Golems, it just happens to be better. Rob, why are you over there? Move over a little bit. There you go. Give the card some room. Give it some breathing space. But yeah, so with that basically wraps up all of the cards for now, I believe. Here, let me look at the list. Yep, that's the last one. And I'll wait again to do our third review when there's a little bit more cards. I want to do at least 10 to 15 cards at a time. Anything more than that, the video is way too long, and anything less than that, I don't want to sit here and farm views to get the card reviews. You know what I'm saying? I want to cover a good amount of cards. Doesn't take too long, but at the same time, I want to dig a little deeper and get a good feel for the cards and kind of give you guys my first initial gut reactions to them. So with that, thank you for watching, and if I happen to miss anything or you'd like to add on to anything I've said, that's what a comment section below is for, and I look forward to reading it and talking to you guys about these cards. As always, I'm Orshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.